Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Martirano. I am a grants manager with the Early Learning Division, primarily focusing on our Preschool Promise program. I have my colleagues Meredith and Josefina with us. I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Meredith?
Hi, yes, my name is Meredith Fleming, and I am a new grant manager with the Early Learning Division, and I will be working with you all with Preschool Promise. So please reach out if you have questions. I'm still getting up to speed on everything, so Anthony will be doing the majority of the talking today, but thank you for joining us. Josefina, would you like to introduce yourself?
I got me on mute. Hello, everybody. My name is Josefina Harry. I'm here to support you all. And this time is for you guys to bring up your questions and the issues you may have. So please feel free to state your questions on the chat or just listening, for those who are like familiar with all the system, but you somehow ended up running into a small issue. We are here to support you guys. Thank you for being here.
Great, thank you, Meredith and Josefina. So today, again, we're right at 60 minutes on time, so we want to make sure we're honoring all of your time this afternoon. Some topics that we're going to go over, as you can see on the screen. How do I get paid? How do you get money in your account so you can pay your bills and your staff and etc.? What does that look like? We'll go through the draw report. What does that look like? What do I need to do in addition to the draw report as it relates to Egums, including the Preschool Promise calculator to ensure that there's no delays in the funds transferring from your sub-grant account in Egums to either a paper check mailed to you or a direct deposit. We'll also do a quick overview on the budget plan, the template, and then certainly have an opportunity for some questions towards the end. Certainly, as Josefina mentioned, feel free to throw those comments into the chat box. My hope, my intent is that we'll be able to get through most of those questions, if not all of them, though certainly understand that everyone's understanding and learning speed and abilities is different. So I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps one or more have additional questions afterwards that you need to direct that's more specific to your business. In that event, please see the Preschool Promise, the PSP at State email inbox account, and we'll certainly be able to address those further as they're specific to your situation. So we'll go ahead and get started. I think the first thing that I want to bring to everyone's attention that I see as a challenge or maybe an opportunity regarding getting our funds, how do you get your Egums, is that you must submit a draw report alongside your Egums claims. You have to do both. I think the biggest piece that the communication I've had to do back and forth with a handful of grantees is someone has submitted just their draw report, or they've submitted just their Egums claims. You've got to submit them together at the same time, all while using the Preschool Promise calculator that we'll go over here in just a moment. So we'll launch right into that right now. And again, if you have questions as we go, please feel free to enter those into the chat box, and we'll address those as they come. I want to start with the draw report because again, that's been top of mind for most folks. How do I get the money, right? I need to pay my bills. And so what you'll notice with the draw report that's in front of you is it should feel and taste, if you will, very similar to a budget report that you do as a part of your deliverables with the Early Learning Division. The first box, again, you're going to just pick your early learning, your hub, right? Your local learning, early learning region hub. And you're going to pick you're going to pick your grant name, right? Your business. So we'll go ahead and select that. And then you're going to select your month. Your draw report. So this is where it gets a little confusing for some folks, depending on when they have selected to do their draws. We have allowed and encouraged grantees to claim starting in July. Your grant is effective July 1st, 2021 and goes through June 30th, 2022. So you have the ability to draw July, August, and September, October, and November now, right? And so the idea there is if you're wanting to, if you haven't submitted a claim yet, and this is your very first time for this program year, and you want to submit for the first quarter, because we've done that in the past, and that's certainly something that we encourage you to do to enable your business to have some cash flow to start off. What you're going to do is you're going to select those 3 months, right? So you're going to select July, August, and September. That's a great place to start. You're going to put in the total amount of money that you're claiming for those months, right? You can take what is your total grant award. Let's say hypothetically it's $144,000. Okay, divide that by 12. It's $12,000. And I'm going to do that. That's $12,000 per month. And in this example, I'm doing 3 months. Everyone follow me there. So I'm going to go ahead and put $36,000 in this entry here. Okay. Now the rest of the form is pretty simplistic. It has the contact information. Who is submitting this draw report on behalf of your organization? It might be yourself, it may be your accountant, it may be your business office manager, maybe your teacher, your staff. But again, we're going to put the name in there and the email address of that individual. While that seems pretty minor, it's pretty important because that's who I'm going to be contacting in the event that I have questions or there's a discrepancy, or maybe the math didn't work out on your entries. But as we scroll down, we're going to start to enter, okay, how one of two things: how is that $36 going to be spent, or how was it spent? In this case, we're looking how was it spent, because we're talking about July, August, and September. And so you're going to split that $36,000. You're going to allocate it, if you will, along the different line items that are listed. Now, I get this question a lot. Do I have to have advertising every month? And the answer is no. Do I have to have equipment entries every month? No. The idea here with these different line items is these are general and standard expenses that Preschool Promise providers will incur, though not everyone at the same frequency. So again, you may have family engagement activities where you have $5,000 a month, just say hypothetically a round number. But then the next 2 or 3 months, you don't have anything. So again, what you're going to do is if it's a zero amount, you're just going to enter in zero. That's going to be key. All of the fields are required. As you'll see, there's a little red asterisk next to it. So if you get to the bottom and you try to submit and it won't allow you, it gives you an error. It's likely because you missed a box or you missed an entry. So again, just go back up and it'll highlight in red an area that you missed. As you scroll down, again, these are all the same entries, the same exact line items that you'll encounter on your budget report. And so again, your budget, we'll go to that here in just a few moments. But the idea is the budget is your plan. How do you intend? How do you plan on spending your Preschool Promise grant award over the course of the performance period? And the draw report does what? It's actually showing, again, how was it spent, or how are you going to spend it, depending on when you draft your dollars. We have some grantees that will draft at the first of the month for that month, and some grantees that will draft at the end of the month for that month, right? So we're right at November 3rd. So in the last 3 to 5 days, I've had several grantees draft and submit a draw report and their corresponding Egums claims for the month of November going forward. In that same time period, I've also had grantees submit a draw report and the corresponding Egums claims for the month of October. Both are absolutely acceptable, and there's no issues with there, so long as you're documenting in your draw report which month or what time period those dollars are associated with. So I'm going to pause there for a few moments. Meredith, how are we doing in the chat box? Do we have any questions thus far?
Yeah, we have one question. Can you make this easier when you have to do duplicate things for the same funds? And I don't know
the
if
person asking
Sherry
that
would like-
question, yeah, can you expand on that perhaps?
Basically, this is Cherie from
Yeah.
Parker Rose.
Hi, Cherie.
When you have this program, you have to fill this out, then you have to go to EGMS. Or if you could just fill this out and automatically it goes to your portal, but you're doing the same thing and then have to go to EGMS and then go to the system and draw them. Why can't this just be your support? Or ask for this on a quarterly basis, as we've done before, so you can get that data.
Yeah, Cherie,
I'm not trying to understand why we have to do this every time we draw.
Yeah, that's a great question. What's interesting about that is that was one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we got last year was grantees. Actually, it was more difficult for grantees to track their expenses on a quarterly basis. That was the biggest piece there. And so we went to a monthly basis. And it's not even, it's monthly, but again, it's either before or after the month for the dollars that you're drafting. The other piece is we have to be able to show the story and explain how and where those dollars are being spent to the legislature. And so last year, as everyone knows, and one of my biggest pet peeves is using the pandemic and COVID as an excuse, but it's really a reason. And so there was a lot of things that we just really had to, fly by the seat of our pants, if you will, to get those pieces done. And so what's been requested from the executive leadership and the division is that these reports are done at the time you are submitting a claim. I wish, and one of the things that the division is doing as we're looking at converting and transitioning into the Department of Early Learning and Childcare, the DELC, is to have one system that basically fits all, right? Because I feel, at least from my chair, I feel some of your pain because you're right. I have to go to 3 different areas, 3 different systems in order to process and then to ensure that you're getting your funds. So yeah, if there was a way to really bring those together into one singular system, I'd be the first person on line co-signing that. So,
I mean, that would be fine if it was the only grant I had.
Sure.
Right. And I don't know what the rest of the people do, but I'm a school district, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't just run a pre-K program. I run a school district. It's just 16, 17 kids out of all the kids I got. So when you then the allocation method, it's drop your numbers in there and then it splits it. Now I can understand the reason why, if you want to split it on this methodology, but then tie your expenses for that allocation, it isn't necessarily, because most of us have, and this is the change, because for many years pre-K under their early learning, it was a federal program because it was tied to the contract that had a CFDA number.
Sure.
Or an ALN number that is called now. But now all of a sudden this last year, oh, sorry, it's going to be state. So I've made all the school districts, most of us still had it listed as federal money, not state.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really clear.
Yeah, and that's that's the acknowledgement that as programs change, as funding sources change, where Preschool Promise is funded between the general fund dollars as well as the Student Success Act, the tax dollars, right? And so as the dollars are allocated to us here at the division, and we ultimately distribute those dollars out to our grantees, whether that's Preschool Promise, our Equity Fund, or Oregon Pre-Kindergarten, and our Emergency Child Care grants, I understand what you're saying. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what side of the table you're sitting at, that's just the way it is right now. And again, would I expect it to be maybe slightly different this next following year? Yeah, it's a good possibility as we transition, towards DELC and how our service agreements are with the Department of Education and the requirements that are put upon us. So.
This is similar to when we did IDEA, and IDEA is part of the general fund, and it's part of federal money.
Sure.
But when many years ago, and most of you, based on looking at your age, have not been here long enough to know that one. When ODE was doing that, they split it similar to what you're doing. But then most of us were reporting all them IDEA dollars as federal dollars because you didn't get the split until the end of the year.
Yeah.
So
well, I think
this
Cherie,
it's a little bit different. So it's confusing for most people, and you were asking for opinions and questions, and this is what's confusing to it, because I'm going to report it in its grant, in its totality, right? And it's going to be basically in a special revenue fund grant, but it's in total. It's not going to be broke out into 2 or 3 little grants, because it's hard to do that because you don't know it until you put it on your little formula and do the split.
Yeah, well, and I hear you. And I think maybe, Cherie, what we do is we take some of that offline, because one of the beautiful things about Preschool Promise is it's truly a mixed delivery program, right? We have in-home providers that have 4 to 6 Preschool Promise children, all the way up to our large OPK and school districts that have in excess of 200 Preschool Promise children, plus the mixed delivery of, ERDC children, private pay children, OPK, Head Start, seasonal, all of the above. And so it's certainly going to be difficult. I would actually say more near impossible to make it fit everyone 100%. What I can tell you is that to date, I have approved almost just over actually $4.2 million since September 27th for Preschool Promise claims to date, in almost 300 claims. And so the system is working. And while it may not be perfect for your organization 100% of the time, understand is that it's a work in progress. We're trying to fit everyone's needs at all of the time. And certainly we can take the specifics, like I mentioned earlier, to your organization offline again, so we're able to get through all this information today, if that's acceptable to you, Cherie.
You guys asked the question, so I was bringing up. You wanted
absolutely,
clarity. And basically,
Okay, thank you. Were there any other questions in the chat there, Meredith?
No, not at this moment.
Okay. Does anyone? We're going to continue to pause for just a moment. Any other questions or pieces anyone wants to touch on the draw report?
This is Autumn. I can't type right now where I'm at, but I just had a question on, so like you're saying, if from what you said in the beginning, is if like you're not going to draw for November, say November, December, you're going to draw in January, not to do the draw report until January?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I messed up this month. I think I did my draw report, but I'm not.
I'll double check. I did see that you had submitted something, Autumn, but I think that what I'm hoping folks are hearing me say is that the draw report and the Egums, that's a 1-to-1 correlation.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. And then I guess my second question to that is, when you are used to, you're used to your income being the same every month because you average, just say like what you were saying, family engagement, say you budget the $200. Can, I've just taken that amount and divided it over the 12. So it's equal, because it's like what I've already spent or a forecast. And I know I always spend over what my budget is allowing anyways. So is that okay to do? Because you're saying a forecast or what you've actually spent.
That's acceptable. That's acceptable, right? And so
like my numbers would be the same all year long.
Yeah, that's acceptable. And one of the things that we may want to sit down, you or we or each of you individually, is when you're doing that, it's not necessarily a 1/12, right? So it depends on when you're starting to draft your dollars. Now, I mentioned earlier that, we encourage you to start drafting those dollars back effective July 1. But the reality is a large percentage of our grantees didn't start incurring Preschool Promise expenses until September, right? And so then it's not a 1/12, right? It's September through June. And so you wouldn't take your total award and divide by 12, you'd divide by the number of months that you started going forward. Does that make sense? Otherwise, you're setting yourself up not to, this sounds funny, but take advantage and utilize your entire award. And I know that I would expect that you all would want to exhaust all of the funds that you were awarded. So again, that would be the thing. If you're starting expenses and programs,
if you're always going over your budget, because it's not, I probably need to talk to you offline.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because there's going to be so many of our grantees.
So it's like there's not enough expenses to do in my budget.
Yeah, so many of our grantees have more programs or children outside of Preschool Promise, right? And so again, in this context, what we're really focused on, like what we're interested in is the spending and the use of the Preschool Promise dollars, Obviously, there's going to be additional expenses outside that you incur as part of your business, as a part of doing business. And while we acknowledge that and understand it, that's not something that we're looking for or looking to detail out in these reports.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
we can certainly set something up offline for you as well, Autumn, if that works for you.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so can I get a head nod from someone if you can see the Excel preschool promise calculator? Awesome. Okay, so this is a tool that we've created to help support you all. And I will tell you, and I will admit that this gave me a lot of heartburn. This transition from last year, right? I could tell you, I probably sent out 5,000 or 6,000 emails last program year saying, no, you need to exhaust all your general funds first, right? And then you can do your SSA dollars. Well, the way that the funds are being distributed or received by the early learning division is different. That's why we have to transition this way. And so your award is split into two subgrants, right? There's the general funds as well as the student success, the SSA dollars. And so while this is going to give you the ability to determine how much you need to draw per subgrant. So in that last example that we did on the draw report, we had a $36,000 number that we were wishing to claim out of Egums. So if we look at this spreadsheet here, excuse me, there's a yellow box. I'm going to put in the amount of money that I want to draw. And in this case, $36,000 is my example. Then I hit enter. And I'm not going to read it out loud to you. You can see it. You also have it in the chat box, but we'll also send it out again as well, a link to the document. But if you see right here in the section, it says, once you log into Egums, please claim the following. And so first you're going to do a claim for the general funds. In this example, $13,384.80. And you're going to submit a second claim under the Preschool Promise SSA for $22,615.20. Really simple here. These are the same, the same exact names that you'll see your subgrants are within Egums. And I'll just change the example. You can put $5,000 because some of our grantees will only draft $5,000 per month based on their award. And as you can see, it splits it out for those percentages. I'll pause again for a few moments. Any questions on this? No? Okay. So again, this Preschool Promise, the PSP calculator, is a tool for you. I would save it on your desktop or wherever you save it. I do not need this emailed to me. I don't need a screenshot. You don't need to upload it. So long as your numbers match, right? So long as you put from your draw report, if your draw report was for $5,000, right? And then you go into Egums and you put two claims, one claim for general funds for $1,859 in this example, and $3,141 for SSA. Then I go into Egums, I look at the Egums claims that you submitted, and I look at your draw report. And as long as those numbers match, it's approve, 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 submit, submit, submit. And then the money gets processed for you. So it's really simple. And I just want to say it just one more time. Draw report plus Egums claims equals money in your account. If you have one and not the other, there's no money in your account. Dan smiled, so yep, you can see that, right? Great.
All I would say is make sure you print this off because you'll need it as an audit trail for your auditors to support the distribution of why you elected that distribution for that monthly claim.
Yeah, because we also collect that on the backside of the report. So when you submit the draw report, it comes back. I don't know if anyone's familiar with smart sheets on the backside. It's very Excel-like, and so that's how we do our checks and balances. Is there's the formula on the backside that I see that did you do the math correctly on your entry? Every once in a while, we're all human. We all have sometimes fingers that don't work together, and we transpose numbers. And so what I do in those cases, if it's just a transpose, I go ahead and I correct the Egums claim based on your draw report, and that's what gets processed. If there's a scenario where you only submitted a general fund and you didn't submit your SSA dollars, then you should expect it to get an email saying, hey, I'm not able to process this claim until you have the corresponding draw report submitted, and or you have both the GF and the SSA dollars. Now, I do want to put a little asterisk to that statement. There's going to be a point in time, depending on the size of your grant, that you will exhaust your general funds, right? So your general funds will have a zero balance, or it'll only have like, I don't know, a $300 and $356 balance. And that's certainly not going to be sufficient, right? So at that point in time, then you're going to do the balance, the remainder amount under the SSA amount. And so I don't expect that'll happen for most folks until after the first of the year, probably February, March, maybe April. But again, there will be a point in time where there isn't enough money in your general funds account to cover that portion of your claim. And so then we would just go ahead and exhaust the full amount in the general funds, and we would do the balance, the difference, in addition to the amount that you would do in the SSA. Now, let me make one more little asterisk point to that. There's a very good chance that you won't remember this, right? So if you remember anything, please remember this email address, right? Shoot me an email, shoot Meredith, we'll all get it, and we'll be able to respond and take that stress off of you, because you'll be like, uh-oh, there's not enough money, how do I do this? And we'll say, no worries, we just need to make sure we'll draft the additional dollars out of the other subgrant.
Anthony, we have a quick request to just one more time put a amount in the calculator and show how it is splitting into the two funds.
Yeah, let's go 7,500. We'll do $7,500 in the yellow box. No commas necessary. Just put the raw number in there and hit enter, and it does the calculation there for you automatically. Again, in this case, you would draw a claim for general funds for $2,788.50. You would do an additional claim number 2, under the Preschool Promise SSA of 2123 in the amount of $4,711.50. There's been a few instances where I can tell that somebody did the calculator, but they only submitted one claim. They did general funds, for example, right? Because we're human, and we're humans of habit, right? And so we just remember, what did we do last year? And we did it all under general funds. Again, if you accidentally forget and you put $7,500 into general funds, you should expect an email that says that your claim has been rejected. And just a friendly reminder, please use the Preschool Promise calculator to submit both the general fund in this amount and an SSA amount, an SSA claim in this separate amount. Does that answer? Is that sufficient for the individual?
I think that is sufficient. One other question regarding payments. Are they being processed on Mondays?
Yeah, that's an interesting rumor. I'm not sure how or where that started. Yes, claims are approved on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. So I'm not sure how that started or where that came from. I heard that just a few days ago. Last year, what my message was to everyone was that, and it is essentially the same today, but the very first thing that I do when I log in the morning is I go into Egums and I would approve claims. That's the very first thing, right? I go in, approve claims, either approve them, reject them, communicate out as appropriately on those situations. And then I wouldn't go back to Egums until the next day, right? What I've done differently this year, because again, what happens, so behind the scenes, if you will, so claims get approved, and then our Egums team does what's called a batch. This is too much information for you. I don't expect you to remember this because it's not really relevant, but just so you understand, the idea is they batch it, and that's what gets processed through the Oregon Department of Education, the accounting system. So then ultimately to either process and cut a check or process a direct deposit. That happens at roughly 10:30 every day. So if I was to approve a claim at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's exactly the same thing as me approving that claim the following day at 7:45 in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning when I start approving claims. That's how I did last year. This year, the difference is I am checking claims. I'm checking Egums and draw reports throughout the day, every day, Monday through Friday, right? Because I acknowledge that while from your seats, it's more work to do these reports and this and that. I have a similar situation because now we're doing, instead of 170 claims a month, I'm topping out over 300 claims a month, right? So it's from a time management situation and efficiencies. I'm reviewing and processing and improving and or rejecting claims throughout the day, much like I would while I'm checking my emails. So it's more real time. So again, yes, claims are approved on Mondays, but not just Mondays.
Thanks, Anthony. A couple short questions. So will we be sharing the presentation and materials? Yes, we are recording this and we can make that available. And all of these materials that we are sharing are also available on the SharePoint site. Are you going to walk us through the screen for the Egums as well today?
I'm not going to go through Egums. But what we will share with you if you are new to the world of Egums is we do have a document that shows how to make a claim in Egums, including all the steps necessary from logging in, how to get your password, making sure that you're reviewing the SANS report, and as well as clicking the edit and so forth. I believe we also have a YouTube tutorial that we created last year that essentially walks you through how to make a claim within Egums, how to navigate through the system. That will certainly make that available as well. That's currently sitting on our YouTube channel that I believe if you have access to our SharePoint, it's there. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and make sure that's accessible to all of you attending today as well. Any other questions at this moment?
Yeah, yes, if you don't have access to SharePoint, please do send an email to the PSP general email and we will make sure everybody's added. So, all right, you can move forward. Okay, great.
So let's take a little walk through the budget plan, the Preschool Promise 21-22 budget plan. Again, if I was to scroll through these items, these are the same exact line items, A through V, that you'll see on that draw report. We wanted to make sure that they lined up identical in the event to make it more simplistic. The key here for Preschool Promise, our budget, is that we want to see what is your total award, your Preschool Promise award, not your emergency care funds, not your other title dollars, but just Preschool Promise. And how you plan, because that's how a budget is. A budget is nothing more than your plan. And sometimes we're more successful in getting right on that plan, and sometimes not so much, right? Because life happens and things like COVID happens. And so those things all change how we have to run our business. But again, if your award from your grant agreement's $100,000, that's the number that we're looking for. That's the number. Which column is it? Right here. We want that number in this column, $100,000, or whatever your specific grant award is. Now, that's great, but what's as important and really more important is that each of these line items, A through V, that those all equal and add up to $100,000. If you submit a report, a budget plan, that you show that your award was 100,000, but it calculates out to 105,000, I'm going to send it back to you saying, hey, please re-review your entries. We need to ensure that you're showing what the actual plan is for the amount of dollars you are awarded under Preschool Promise. Now, if it's a matter of, again, you just transpose the number or you left off the pennies, like, that seems pretty simplistic. We make that edit, we correct it, and we approve and move on. But if there's a difference and it doesn't add up, then please expect that you'll get that email that says, please update it and correct that information. One item that I do want to mention as it pertains to the budget that I've seen where it takes just a couple extra moments to just review is we have some folks that'll put some dollars in line V as in Victor for the other subcontracts. It's kind of a catch-all. Some folks are putting in their indirect costs or their admin fees, or they'll put in instead of including it above in like the building maintenance, they'll put the janitorial, or maybe they're subcontracting out like a dietitian or a nutritionist more so. And so what you'll do is you'll put in a dollar figure for those, and then you'll itemize out those different pieces. And what I have found more than a handful of times is it's just a typo where we've included $1,000 item there, a $1,500 item there, another $500 item there. I'm sorry, a $500 item and a $50. So the challenge with that is that doesn't add up to 2,500. That's in this example, that actually is more than 2,500. But what happens is on the back side, this is just a narrative box. This doesn't calculate into any of the checks and balances on the backside. And so what it's doing is it's pulling this number. And so one of the first steps that I do when I'm reviewing your budget, and if it doesn't add up identicals, I'm going to this bottom box here and I'm like, okay, oh, there's an example, 25, it actually should be $3,050. And once I make that adjustment on the backside, 99% of the time they match, they add up. It's easy. I can click the date that I'm reviewing it, I'm approving it, and hit submit. And then that's when you'll receive the approval email. And so the cool thing about the budget this year, and I know it's scary and it takes some time, but we're almost 75% of our budgets received and approved thus far. And I will just tell you, I applaud all of you in the field because you're all doing the work, right? That's fantastic. Last year, it took forever to get those approved. And so again, much like I mentioned earlier on our claims and Egums, I'm checking those and reviewing those throughout the day. I'm doing the same thing with the budget. And so there are scenarios where, again, there's a little bit, I'm not doing it necessarily like within 5 minutes, right? But I'm trying to do it real time throughout the day because there are some scenarios that take a little bit more legwork than what I'm talking about today with, if folks miss numbers or there needs to be additional assistance provided. So I'll pause again there for a moment.
I don't see any questions in the chat box. Does anybody have a question as it relates to the budget plan? Yeah, and if you do have specific questions that are just related to your program, we can take those offline as well. Reach out to us.
One of the things that unfortunately we're not able to do, as you might imagine, is we're not able to provide tax support, right? Tax advice or legal support, those sorts of things. It doesn't feel good, but I say you need to connect with whoever does your taxes or your bookkeeper, those sorts of things. Another item that we're not really able to help with, other than just from a fundamental, just an idea wise, is I mentioned earlier, so many of our grantees do blended classrooms, right? So you have the blended and braided funding, which I'm a huge fan of. It does though create a little extra work, right? Because from an accounting standpoint, is you figure out how many children and what's the percentage and so forth. But again, when we're talking about the budget report, the plan here and your draw reports, we're only concerned and focused on your preschool promise dollars. As many of you might recall, I come from the Head Start preschool promise world prior to coming to the early learning division. I ran blended and braided classrooms. Again, that's why I'm a big fan of them, but I do know that they are a lot of extra work when it comes to the fiscal side of things. I'm certainly happy to talk through some of those things, but I can't answer all of those questions specifically. So to offer the support, but again, just be aware, I can't answer every question there, unfortunately. So what we'll do as well is so everyone has the links to these reports that we've sent out previously, though I do believe Meredith is putting those in the chat box. Again, we have the link to the draw report. We have the link to the budget plan. We also have this document that we sent out quite some time ago, right after our Preschool Promise kickoff. But we'll go ahead and include that today as well, because there are some comments that relate to the fiscal sides of things, the financial sides of Preschool Promise, but also there's a lot of great information that relates to your business, because obviously it's not just dollars and cents. There's children and families and programming all involved there as well. We'll also include the link to the bulletin from September 27th. I refer folks to this document all of the time as it relates to, it's the how do I get paid? It's essentially what we talked about today. Step one is determine how much money you're wanting to draft, how much money you want to claim. Okay, great. Go ahead and fill out the draw report, illustrating the amount of money that you're wishing to claim and how you plan on those dollars either being spent or how it's going to be spent for that month coming forward. And then you're going to take that total dollar that you're wishing to claim, put that in the Preschool Promise calculator. And then finally, you're going to take those two dollars that the calculator gives you, and you're going to submit that in your Egums claim, one under general funds and one under the SSA. So we've got right about 15 minutes or so left in our designated time. I certainly don't want to take time if it's not necessary, but I certainly want to make sure everyone has an opportunity, if you feel comfortable in this arena, to ask your questions either verbally or in the chat box. And again, if you don't, or there's additional questions that come up after today, feel free to reach out to our Preschool Promise at state.or.us, and we'll certainly make sure that we either answer it by email or perhaps set up a one-on-one conversation with you. So I'll pause just for a few moments again.
Yeah, and you are also welcome to send a direct message to me if you'd like your question to be anonymous. Here's a question. If we had some expenses for the period of July through September, but cannot submit a request until the end of this month or next month, do we need to adjust the month from 1/12 to 9/12? I'm not sure I understand the end of that question, but does the person who asked that question want to elaborate?
So Oni, on that's your question. You're not able to submit your claim until later? Is that just how the process you're doing in your organization? While we're waiting on that, I will address the second question that was put on there regarding the deadline for Egums claims. So that's an interesting piece there. That's when the short answer is no. The due date of the 15th does not exist or pertain as it relates to anything fiscal or financial on your Egums claims or draw report. Okay, we have a monthly report, the monthly enrollment report, that talks about attendance and your enrollment and those pieces. I refer to that as a programmatic report. That is due the 15th. The draw report is not due the 15th. I know that it can be translated and interpreted to mean it's the 15th, but I'm telling you it's not. So that's a good thing. So again, like I said, I have grantees that will submit on the 1st of the month, the 5th, the 10th, the 26th, the 30th of the month, again, for either the current month or the previous month. But I would say, again, please hear me say that the real requirement as it relates to getting paid is that you have a matching draw report to your Egums claim. I could say that on repeat for the rest of the 15 minutes. Because it's that important, because that will only delay. If you don't, it will delay your ability to receive funds, and that's the last thing that any one of us wants to do. Yeah, my priority is to responsibly ensure that we're distributing funds out as fast as we can.
Any additional questions?
So working on your financials still, that's fine, no worries. The budget plan ultimately is due per the grant manual 30 days from the date in which your grant is fully executed. We are trying to be responsive to that. The first, I think, if I remember correctly, the first grant was fully executed on like September 22nd. So obviously that one is there, but I mentioned earlier, we're just at 75 or 76% of all of our budgets in and approved already. And so we're certainly headed in the right direction. Based on what you were mentioning, yeah, we'll get it in on time. Yes, your question is yes, because you're not going to do the 12 months, you're going to do the 9 months. So yeah, you can make the question is not starting until, they're not doing anything from July to September. They started from September going forward. So then, yeah, you can go ahead and make your calculation based on a 1/9 payment as opposed to a 1/12 payment. We actually have a good majority of our grantees across the state that are using that methodology. If you do have expenses from July and September, then you need to submit a draw report that represents those expenses for July and through September. June doesn't work. Maybe that's just a typo, right? June was part of the last program year. This program grant started on July 1st. And so, yeah, July through September, you just need to ensure that you're submitting a draw report. If you don't submit that draw report in the Egums claim until December, that's fine. It's just unfortunately you won't receive any funds until then. So if you have the ability to run your business without those funds, then certainly that's one way of moving forward. So yeah, great. Any other questions?
Is there a deadline to submit a quarterly report?
Sabi, which quarterly report are you referring to?
Hi, Anthony. I just talking about that because I'm going to do a quarter report. I mean, I'm not going to do a monthly report. So there's a deadline to do it. Or I mean,
are you referring to the draw report?
Yes.
Yeah. So the draw report, what we're looking at is doing July, August, July, August, and September as a quarterly report, and then going monthly from there forward. That way we're able to ensure that the dollars are being distributed appropriately when it comes to monitoring, when it comes to ensuring that the cash flow is being spent as it relates to Preschool Promise. That's why the language regarding quarterly this year was to allow and to encourage grantees the ability to draft July, August, and September in a lump sum. And then the idea there is then to go monthly from there forward.
But the thing is that for me, it's work better quarterly than monthly. I mean,
sure.
Because I always first I do the draft report, then after that I just ask for reimbursement. I don't ask for money ahead of time. So that's why I want you to do a quarter report.
So yeah, so that's something that we can talk offline to see about providing some additional assistance to that. But yeah, the idea there is to provide a consistent and constant cash flow to our grantees on a monthly basis, so that we're ensuring that the dollars are being spent from an accounting or a fiscal side. We use what's called a burn down terminology, a burn down rate, making sure that those funds are being spent throughout the grant period. We had several instances last year where grantees had leftover dollars, or I should say unspent dollars, in the month of May and June, and they were attempting to draw down large amounts of dollars and make large purchases. And unfortunately, those dollars weren't spent prior to June 30th, as well as the items or materials that those dollars were being spent on weren't received prior to June 30th. So ultimately, those expenses were not allowable. And so businesses had to absorb those expenses outside of being able to charge those a Preschool Promise. But Sabi, I think what we can do is we can certainly, much like my conversation with Cherie, if she's still interested in another offline conversation as it relates specific to your business.
I will contact you so we can discuss that more.
Awesome. Thanks, Sabi.
Anthony, I don't need an offline.
Okay, sounds great. Yep. Yeah, on the contract, the due date, the 15th. So that's regarding monthly reports. Again, the draw report's not a monthly. It's a monthly report, but it's not tied to the date of the 15th.
The enrollment report is due on the 15th, and that's what it would be referring to.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any additional questions?
Okay, well, everyone, thank you for your time. We'll make sure that this gets posted, as well as the documents that we provided. We're doing another session tomorrow in Spanish for our Spanish preferred speaking providers. We have an additional session that's scheduled for Friday morning. And so those sessions will all be posted as well. I would expect that those sessions will be very, very, very similar, though there may be some differences in different topics because obviously we're all different individuals and different businesses. So once those are posted, you all will be notified through our bulletin, the bulletins that Angela sends out. So then you'll have access to those YouTube videos. So again, thank you. Thank you for everything you do for our youngest Oregonians and the families that support those children. Without each and every one of you, Preschool Promise does not exist, right? Like, I hope you hear me say that that's truth. That's not state talk, that's real talk. You guys are phenomenal. You folks are phenomenal. And we appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you. You all have a great rest of your afternoon.